Recording in progress. Recording in progress.
Good evening, everyone. Try that again. Okay. All right. Good evening, everyone. Council just met in closed session, and I will now look to the CAO to provide the report.
Mr. Mayor, through you to council and the public in attendance, consideration of the subject matter in closed session concluded with the provision of confidential direction to the township solicitor in closed session regarding the open legal file.
Okay, please stand for the national anthem. We would like to begin this meeting by acknowledging the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee peoples, acknowledging the One Bowl and Spoon Treaty. Disclosures of pecuniary interest. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Seeing none? Okay. Please note that these meeting proceedings are being broadcast live, recorded and made available through the township website and youtube.com. Thank you to the Wainfleet Brethren in Christ Church for putting on the annual Maple Lawn Cemetery Memorial Service this past Sunday. The Niagara Transit Commission meets Tuesday, July 18th at 3 p.m., and our next regular meeting of council will be held later that day at 7 p.m. Are there any announcements or remarks from members of council? Seeing none. Moving on to the adoption of minutes, are there any comments or corrections for the draft minutes from the regular meeting of council held June 6, 2023? None? Okay. Then I have a motion that the minutes of the regular meeting of council held June 6, 2023 be adopted as circulated. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Councilor McClellan? Councilor Anderson? Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? And that'll be carried. Okay, moving on to the minutes from June 14th. Are there any comments, corrections for the draft minutes from the special meeting of council held June 14th, 2023? Seeing none, I have a motion that the minutes of the special meeting of council held June 14th, 2023 be adopted as circulated. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Councilor McClellan, Councilor Gilmore. Any discussion? Seeing none, call the question. All in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Okay, we're going to move on to the public meeting. I'll ask the drainage superintendent, Mr. Jameson, to provide us a brief overview of this report.
Great. Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor, to all of council. Drainage Staff Report 7 of 2023 is in respect to the submission of the Consolidated South Wainfleet Drain Section 76 Engineering Report. Notification for this meeting was distributed on June 13th. Township staff received 8 inquiries from the public and has met with 3 property owners in respect to this meeting. Prior to this evening, there have been numerous public consultation meetings held in compliance with and above and beyond the Drainage Act. So at this time, I would request the engineer, Daniel Anders, provide a brief presentation on the project.
It is now. Can you hear me? Excellent. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Danielle Anders, and I work for GM Blue Plan Engineering, and I'm here to present the South Wainfleet Drainage System report and information on the report. Along with me tonight is my colleague, Marjorie Prentice, who also helped me with the report. I'm just pushing the arrow. Is that what I'm supposed to be? Yep. That's what I was pushing. Okay, good. So just be. You can just. Perfect. I'll just say next slide. Is that easier? Frozen. It's okay. Okay, so just a quick overview of what I'm going to discuss this evening. I'm going to do a quick introduction and background and timeline of the project. I'm going to provide a little bit of an overview of the methodology in which we approach the project, so digital elevation model, the fieldwork, and the catchment delineation. I'm going to talk a little bit about a high-level discussion on the assessment schedule, calculations, and interpretation of the assessments, and then questions. Excellent. Okay, so just a quick introduction. So GM Blue Plan Engineering was appointed by Council October 3rd, 2017 to complete a new report under Section 76 of the Drainage Act to update the schedule of assessment for the Consolidated South Wainfleet Drainage System. The Township at the time received permission from the Ontario Drainage Tribunal to proceed with the new engineering report under Section 76 in order to develop the new assessment schedules. So ultimately, the project objective here was to provide updated assessment schedules for each drain within the system. A little bit hard to see, but the study area is quite significant. The watershed area is around 7,000 hectares. The system has 48 open branch drains with a total length of about 193 kilometers, approximately 790 parcels within that area, and the CSW drainage system outlets to the Welland River. Most of it outlets to the Welland River, but it does also outlet to the Wainfleet Bog. So just a little bit of a background on the drainage system, high level. The Consolidated South Wainfleet Drainage System was created under a report by Blake Irwin. June 2nd, 1969 is the date on the report. The report at the time recommended improvement to 41 drains constructed between 1950 and 1952 and construction of 4 more branch drains. Since then, the branches were identified as drains and 1 abandoned. The 1969 assessment schedule covers the entire watershed, but at the time, it did not create separate assessment schedules for each of the branch drains. It was one assessment schedule for all of the 40 8 drains. Consequently, it was not possible to accurately or equitably distribute the drain maintenance costs that were incurred on any particular branch, which led to this project ultimately. So the project timeline, 2018, we began our data collection and got into some data analysis. I'm going to talk a little bit about the data collection that we did. We had our first public meeting in 2018, and then we did some data reconciliation and extraction of property details, which then led into 2019, when we started to get down into the sort of the nitty-gritty of the data that we'd collected and started drafting up some catchment maps, which I'll talk about. Then we did another public meeting in 2019, and then we started into developing some maintenance, draft maintenance schedules, and then we had a third second meeting for 2019, and then I think that slide's wrong. New drainage superintendent was actually 2018. Between 2018 and 2019, I believe Mark started in 2018. And then, as we know, after public meeting number 3, was, I believe, late 2019, we got into COVID. So we just kind of stuck that in there because there was not necessarily a pause, but there was a section there that not a lot of work. We couldn't get out and meet with the public. We couldn't really get out and do a lot of stuff in that period. And then in 2022, we got into the reporting. We picked stuff up back in 2021, and we had draft and final reports in 2022, which leads us into sort of our present here. We just completed a public meeting number 4 to allow all the residents, now that we have the reporting complete, to come in and ask questions once again and to get some information. And then project wrapped up, and we are today, council presentation. After this, we'll be passing a bylaw, and then we'll move into the quarter revision. So just to provide a high-level overview of the process, this was quite a significant process and methodology that was developed to complete the new maintenance schedules for the CSW. So we'll just provide a bit of an overview here. We collected LiDAR, so we hired a contractor to fly an airplane and collect very discrete data at 0.3 meter resolution, so we could create a accurate digital elevation model. This is a very large area, and doing it by traditional surveying didn't seem to be a very good technique. It's also a very flat area, so collecting LiDAR and creating a digital elevation model seemed to be the best approach. However, as we know, as I just said, it's a very flat area. So even with data at 0.3 meter elevation resolution, there were areas we still had to go out and do some spot surveying, road crossings, culverts, that kind of thing. That as great as LiDAR is, there's areas we still needed to go out and spot check. So we did do some on the ground surveying and spot checking. From that digital elevation model that we created from the LiDAR data, we completed an overland flow analysis. So basically, we want to know where, if a drop of water falls in a particular area, where it's going, what area, sort of what direction is it flowing in. So we did that digitally with the information we had, and then we identified flow direction of all the streams and all the paths of water throughout the entire CSW. Then we moved into delineating catchments for each of the drains, which is what we needed to accurately create assessment schedules. And then we determined the proportion of each property parcel contributing to each drain. In a nutshell, that's what we did. And then we ended up with catchments for all the drains. As some of you, I'm sure, are aware, the Consolidated South Wainfleet drainage system is quite unique in the fact that it's all interconnected, right? So this was quite extensive process and an extensive amount of time to create this methodology. In many cases, we're working on Section 76 drains that are sort of one main drain with a couple branches. This was quite extensive. We've got 48 drains, and they're all generally connected in some way. So we worked through that process with the data and then with our methodology, and the drainage superintendent, Mark, was involved along the way. We kind of communicated how we were developing the process. So we ended up with, it's lots of colors on the screen, but many catchments. So each drain branch had its own catchment delineated. Then we got into developing the actual schedule of assessment after we went through all of that data and all of that field work. You can click it again. I think there's some text that can come up there. So properties are assessed based on their outlet liability, which means they're based on the proportion of stormwater runoff each property is estimated to contribute to the drain, depending on its land use. So up there are the area factors we utilize. So land use types are assigned an equivalent area factor to account for their surface permeability. So agricultural land is baseline factor of 1, and they go up from there depending on the land use. Those are the ones that are in the report. Next. And so surfaces with high permeability, which absorb runoff, such as a forest, reduce the volume of runoff flowing to the drain, so they have a factor less than 1. Surfaces with low permeability, like paved areas, which cause runoff to flow over the ground and increase the volume of water entering a drain, have the higher factors. This is just a little overview of how it works. It's pretty straightforward. So each parcel area is multiplied by its equivalent area factor to determine its contributing portion of the total equivalent watershed. So if you have a commercial parcel of a hectare and the equivalent area is 3, then its factor is 3, then it's contributing 3 hectares. You can move on. Yeah. So because this is a very large drainage system, we developed, we knew that it would be difficult, multiple pages of lists and spreadsheets for each drain. There's multiple drains, so the assessment schedule is not just a couple, a 2-pager that we can just easily distribute. So we did set up a website so that residents can go in and easily find their assessments based on their roll number, or they can zoom in and click on their properties. The link is up there. However, under the Drainage Act, everybody obviously in the watershed is it has the right to have a copy of the report. So if, and the report itself is also up here to be, you could click it and download it. But if a hard copy is something that a landowner desires, I think Mark's fielded a couple of requests for hard copies. Those can be provided. So we have it sort of the opportunity, both directions, digitally and hard copy, for people depending on their access to the internet. So how to interpret assessment data. So this, as I said, is quite a complex drainage system. So we tried to simplify it with this graphic, so hopefully it kind of resonates with everybody. But moving from upstream to downstream for each drain segment. So many landowners will see from going to the website or looking at their paper copy that they have multiple percentages, in some cases on multiple drains. And as I said, that's because everything is interconnected generally in the CSW, so we had to try and figure out the best way to approach that. So in this graphic here, you can see the resident parcels, the little yellow square, and obviously their flow is going to Drain A, Section 1, but their flow then follows down through Drain A into Section 2 and Section 3. So they would have percentages for all those sections. We split the drains into sections because you have, like in this case, you've got Drain A, and then you've got a Drain B coming in, and you've got a Drain C coming in from another direction. And having those nodes, or those little X's there, makes it easier. We wanted to try and create an assessment schedule for such a large drainage system that was user-friendly for the drainage superintendent as well, because when he's billing out maintenance, knowing what's, being able to look at it section by section, and knowing what's upstream of the section in which he's doing maintenance is important. So that's how we came about that. We have fielded some questions. We tried to make it as straightforward as we could, plus we did the public information centers, but we do recognize that can be a bit complex, so we have fielded some questions on it, and I think we've addressed the questions we had appropriately. So ultimately, how to interpret assessment data. So to assess the cost to the entire watershed, Mark will use Drain 1, Section 11, and then Drain 14, Section 2. Those are the most downstream outlets. So everybody in the watershed will ultimately have an assessment to Drain 1, Section 11. So next steps, so everyone's been notified obviously of this evening's meeting and notified of the fact the report is ready. Everyone was, next on our agenda is the Court of Revision. So that will be July 27th. So landowners will at that point have the opportunity to appeal their new assessments. So that's in a month from now. And that's all I had. Any questions?
Hold on. First, I'll ask everybody to silence their phones, and then I will ask if there are any questions. From council first. Yeah. Any councilors have any comments or questions? No? Okay. All right. Now I'll ask if there are any members of the public who wishes to provide any comments.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, perhaps the engineer could take her seat.
Sure.
And we will have the resident come forward and state their name, spell their surname, give us their address, and then they can provide comments to council regarding the drainage report.
Ready?
Yeah, just state your name and your
Wayne,
address.
Wayne Cavers,
And if you could spell your last name, sir,
Cavers,
and your address, please.
31876 Highway 3.
Thank you, sir. And your comments?
I just wondered why would I be charged for this drainage when I live right in town? Like, what does this do for me? What am I connected to?
So through you to the engineer, would you be able to respond to that question?
I can respond. So if you've been assessed on the...
We're going to need you to come to a microphone. I'm sorry. Amber?
If your property's been assessed to the drain, that means that your property is contributing flow. You're within that larger watershed there. So your parcel is within one of those catchments then on the map there. So everyone within the CSW drainage area is contributing flow that gets to one of the drains. I'm not sure, I don't have a map in front of me, so
Well, I'd like to
particularly
know-
you are on in the CSW to address details of your question, but generally that's...
No, I'd like to know where I am connected to this drainage. Like, my ditch has been so full of water, we have had to have the township come and clean them out, and there's groundhogs making holes in there. The water was green, and we just complained one year. Like, I never complained. I've been here like over 25 years. This is, and the water that flows, which apparently, if it went over to the feeder canal, would solve that problem. And it's not from my property, it's from the neighbor's property.
Mark, I don't know if you have I see you have the map up there.
So your address is 31876 Highway 3?
Yep.
You contribute 0.007% to drain number 1. So that's the main drain. So Millrace Creek would be the main drain number 1. And you contribute 0.014% to drain 13. So that is the large drain. That's about 500 meters east of town. So I would, looking at this briefly, I would estimate that your water flows across Highway 3 at some point. And
Well, it's not my water flow.
the water that falls on your property makes its
No,
way
that
off
doesn't
your
fall on
property.
my property, it's on the neighbor's property.
Very good. So based on these calculations, you would pay
Well, you guys should come out and
0.07%.
check it out once in
Sir?
a while. Maybe
Sir?
we'll see.
This is not an argument. He's just stating.
I know,
what
and
the
he's
procedures are.
wrong.
Okay.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if the resident has some questions about the accuracy of this, that is something that can be discussed with the drainage superintendent and with the engineer
Great,
don't-
I
don't
wish they
believe-
would show up.
If I could, I don't believe this is the correct venue for that. A call to them would be able to help run through everything with you. I know he has met with others throughout the last several weeks when this public meeting was originally scheduled. I know he had a meeting as recently as today regarding the matter. So it's just a matter of reaching out to him. But frankly, at this stage, if you have concerns or comments regarding this, if you need more information, we can follow up with staff afterwards. But at this stage, we're just trying to get comments regarding the need for
Well, you got
the
my
drainage works.
comment.
Okay.
I just need the information, who to get a hold of, what his number is, and please answer your phone.
Thank you. Are there any other members of public that wish to come up? Okay, seeing none, is there any further discussion from the members of council? No? Okay, then I have a motion that the report DSR 007-2023 regarding consideration of the consolidated South Wainfleet Drain variation of assessment for maintenance and repair be received, and that a bylaw be given 2 readings to provisionally adopt the consolidated South Wainfleet Drain variation of assessment for maintenance and repair dated June 7th, 2023, prepared by GM Blue Plan Engineering under Section 76, Chapter D, 17 of the Drainage Act, RSO 1990, and that staff be directed to advance the consolidated South Wainfleet Drain variation of assessment for maintenance and repair to that of the Court of Revision as per Section 46(1) of the Drainage Act, RSO 1990. And that Councillors McCullen and Councillors Van Fleet be appointed as members to the Consolidated South Wainfleet Drain Variation of Assessment for Maintenance and Repair Court of Revision, and Councillor Gilmore be appointed as an alternate member to be tentatively scheduled for July 27th, 2023 at 4 p.m. Can I get a mover and a seconder? You're going to switch? You'll be alternate? Okay. Okay, so can I get a mover and a seconder? Councillor McClellan? Councillor Anderson? Any discussion? None? Okay. Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Okay, we're going to move on to delegations. Lee Bott, respecting compensation request for Lakewood Beach Construction Zone. We have Ms. Bott here to make a presentation respecting the Lakewood Beach Construction Zone and a related request for compensation. Ms. Bott, you have 10 minutes to make your presentation.
Okay, first, I was in touch with Meredith. Who do I give stick to? Does it work off of this or not? If you could just go to the first slide. Okay. Just start with the first slide. Yes, that's good. Thank you. My name is Lee Bott, B-O-T-T, live at 11775 Lakeshore Road, Wainfleet. I've been a resident of Wainfleet for the last 40 years. I am here on Mayor Grant and Town Council. I'm requesting on behalf of my neighbors in the direct area surrounding Lakewood Beach Properties construction zone compensation in some form to all property owners living in this area. For months now, we have been exposed to noise, vibration, dust, debris, contaminants, and smoke from the construction activities taking place at this site. In the early stages of the destruction, we listened to chainsaws, grinders, and the thumps of tree after healthy tree falling to the ground. After that, up until the last week of activity, we were greeted each morning at 6:50 a.m. by the sounds of diesel motors, backup beepers, dump truck tailgates banging, vibration from bomegs and tampers, and for us in particular, the beeping of horns directly behind our house. Apparently they wanted to wake us up. I have a video taken in my living room, which I'll show you later, of the sound of the vibration that we lived with on a daily basis. Speaking from my own property, every window in my house is now loose, as well as the doors. Every day I have to move items back onto shelves as they were vibrated off of them. My light bulbs are also burning out quicker because the filaments are shaking so much. I did have a job working from home for 3 years, but my computer monitor was vibrating so much I had to get a job outside of home. I could not open my windows during this time due to the noise and debris, and we don't have air conditioning. We never needed it before with the breezes off the lake, and as we both have arthritis, my husband and I, air conditioning is not comfortable for us. I couldn't do my laundry, put my laundry out on the line because of the dirt and debris. I had to do it on my only 2 days off on the weekend, if weather was permitting. Now the property has been raised far beyond the proposed limit of 12 inches told to us in the OMB hearing in 2010 to put them out of the floodplain, and at 12 inches put our property that was not in floodplain into a floodplain. The property has now been raised at the uprush due to the internal break wall up 4 feet. With our knowledge of past and recent storms on the lake, we know that this is a flood-prone area. Now with this buildup, we are all in a dynamic beach hazard zone as the property is slanted towards all of the existing homes along Lakeshore Road, Side Road 18, Dreamland, Summerland roads. But if your inspectors have monitored, as they do with all new builds, don't they? They would already know this. I approach you today as a concerned citizen from my property as well as all properties surrounding this site. The construction sounds can be heard as far away as Moore Road and Morgan's Point Road, the vibration being felt at Morgan's Point, as told to us by a resident down there, because this is shelf bedrock and clay. We have heard the complaints from you've heard the complaints from residents on the Wainfleet Discourse, from the residents along the adjoining roads going to Highway 3, about the increase in traffic, road deterioration, dust, and speeding dump trucks. Our ask is for a reduction at the very least or elimination of our taxes during this time of construction that could go on for many years to come. This is not your standard home construction activity. This is industrial. We pay extremely high taxes to live in a rural community near the lake, though this development will take the use of said lake away from all the longtime residents of this area. We deserve something, don't you think? Our homes have devalued, and many have put their homes up for sale without a bite. To say we are just frustrated doesn't cut it. We are beyond upset. We have urged you for years to listen to our concerns that fell on deaf ears for the purpose of tax base. We have put up with noise, vibration, dust, debris, trucks up and down our road for 9 hours a day in steady procession. 200 trucks a day. My neighbor counted them. We have had our lives and our lifestyles altered forever. Our forever homes are gone. This isn't moderate growth, considering we were earmarked, Wainfleet, as a zero-growth community by the region. We strongly urge you to consider our ask as the people who put you into place to protect and represent us. And please do not say MPAC sets the rates, because they don't. I contacted them. You set the mill rate. They just evaluate our homes just as they would for a bank loan or a mortgage. Well, our homes are worthless now, so put a mill rate on that one. Now, if you could please go to the second slide. This was my backyard. Click it again. This was my backyard, as you see the trees. This was my serenity. This is the destruction I look at on a daily basis. I have no protection. I have no trees. My house rattles in the wind when they're not over there rattling it for me. You can click one more time. This is what I woke up to and got beeps looking out this is my view. And next. This is the video. If you could click on, there's a little arrow. If you scroll, there's a little arrow at the bottom of there that you can turn the video on. Oops. Hover to the left, this way. It's down there. Click on the picture, maybe it'll come up. There, right there. That's what we listen to. Day after day after day. Would you want to live there? Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation, Ms. Bott. Are there any comments or questions for our delegation from the members of council? Seeing none, are there any further discussion from members of council? No? Okay. Then I'll have a motion on the floor that the presentation be received for information. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Councilor McClellan? Councilor Gilmore? Any other further discussion? Seeing none, I will call the question. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you, Lee.
This is absolutely disgusting.
Okay, we're moving on to Community and Development Services, the memorandum respecting short-term rentals. Ms. Earle, would you please give a brief overview of your memo?
Yes, good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of council. On June 6th, council directed staff to make revisions to the draft short-term rental licensing bylaw. Staff have reviewed and researched these requests and are happy to provide you with the revised draft short-term rental licensing bylaw attached to this memo, which incorporates the following minor revisions. Changes to the requirement for timing of a local contact person to attend the STR. The removal of the minimum 7-day rental and instead requiring an STR to have a minimum of 3 days rental and no more than one booking within a 7-day period. And this is to reduce the amount of guest turnover. Changes requiring that no person shall operate an STR purchased after June 21st, 2022, that was the date of the interim control bylaw, unless the property has been the primary or seasonal residence of the owner for 4 years prior to the date of the license application. Removal of the clause regarding guests, as occupancy limits are already included in section 413, which is 2 per bedroom. Guests are considered as part of the occupancy limit for any STR, and staff would use this clause to enforce complaints regarding large gatherings. Changes to the accompanying appendices to reflect the demerit points and associated penalties for the revisions I've just listed have also been included. Please note that the bylaw presented this evening has been amended from the original version as it was posted in the agenda, as there was a grammatical typo in Appendix B, which has been revised to reflect the updated changes in the bylaw. As such, staff would respectfully request Council's consideration of this memo, the amended draft short-term rental licensing bylaw, and the amending AMPS bylaw to allow for enforcement of the new licensing bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you. So I have a motion that the memorandum dated June 27th, 2023, from the Manager of Community and Development Services regarding a revised short-term rental licensing bylaw be received as information, and that the revised draft short-term rental licensing bylaw as amended appended to this memorandum be presented to Council for adoption, and that the AMPS non-parking bylaw number 027-2019 be amended to include short-term rentals. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Councilor McClellan? Councilor Gilmore? Any discussion? Councilor McClellan, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to send this back to staff. With the revisions that happened on Friday that we all got notified about, there's There's been, I don't know what your email was like, but I got more emails on this than I've gotten in anything in 5 years. I think we need to go back, hammer this out, and get it right. There's not much that's wrong, but I don't want to put this out and have to change it in 2 months' time. I think between now and the next council meeting, we can probably get it done if we can get a meeting with the lawyer and have her tell us what's legal and not legal. I don't like the idea of putting some note and somebody being able to challenge it really quickly. I don't know what the rest of the council wants to do, but that's my motion.
Any other discussion? Or can we get a seconder on Councilor McCullen's motion? Councilor Anderson? Okay, any discussion on bring it back to staff?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the member. Am I understanding what you're proposing is referring the bylaw back? Did I understand council wanted to meet with the township solicitor
Yes.
prior to the next council meeting?
Or at the, yeah, prior to this coming before again. I don't care how we do
Okay,
it.
so it's being basically referred to a special meeting with the township solicitor prior to adoption for final review and confirmation.
Let's get it right.
Understood. I think I have that motion down now.
All right. Any other further questions or comments on it? Okay, and then I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Okay, we're going to move on to the Public Works staff reports. PWSR 0. Oh, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to council. Staff will need to get in touch with members to see if we can coordinate a special meeting before 3 weeks from now, sort of thing. So we'll be reaching out to you and figure out what that date will be, if that's acceptable.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, so we are moving on to PWSR 014-2023, respecting the purchase of one four-wheel drive pickup truck. Mr. Nan, would you please give us a brief overview of your report?
Good evening, Your Worship and members of council. Before you is Public Works Staff Report 14-2023, respecting the purchase of a four-wheel drive pickup truck. As council is aware, during budget deliberations, approval was given for two pickup trucks. The first was a 4x4 crew cab pickup, and the second was going to be a regular cab two-wheel drive pickup. During the truck purchase, the initial truck purchase for the 4x4, it resulted in no bidders for the first tender and only one bidder for the second subsequent tender for the same vehicle. Staff were in the middle preparing the tender for the regular cab truck and found out that regular cabs are not available from the only vendor that bid the first truck, and the pricing is not available for next year's model. They offered to us a 4x4 dual cab short box truck that meets all the other specifications that would have been placed in the tender and is available immediately for delivery. As staff have found out, supply and demand for trucks has made it very difficult to purchase, and staff are recommending that council approve waiving the normal procedural policy or procurement policy and be able to purchase the truck from the specified vendor in the report.
Thank you. So I have a motion that the Public Works Staff Report PWSR 014/2023 respecting the purchase of one four-wheel drive pickup truck be received, and that council waive the normal procurement policy and authorize the manager of operations to purchase a 2023 GMC 1500 series four-wheel drive pickup truck from Niagara Motors for $55,000 plus applicable taxes. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Councilor Anderson? Councilor McClellan? Any discussion? Councilor McClellan?
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Nan is not telling us anything that anybody that's looked for a vehicle doesn't know. They're not available. The price is the price. We used to buy with a fleet discount of thousands of dollars, and now it's maybe a few hundred. The world's gone nuts.
Any other comments or questions from any other members of council? Okay, seeing none, then I will call the question. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Okay, we're moving on to review of correspondence. C 2023-234, respecting Stephen Seuss requests support of motion pertaining to mental health, housing, affordability, and addiction. Is there any discussion, or would anybody like to make a motion? And I'll speak to it after. Right. Okay. I'll just open the floor. That I spoke to Stephen Seuss about this. We went in depth. I've talked to staff a little bit about this. At this time, we decided that we should more or less receive it as information and get some more information on this before making, such a decision without having, much information on it. So I would put the motion forward that we just receive this as information. Okay. Seconded by Councillor Van Fleet. Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, so then I'll call the question. All in favor? Councillor Anderson, you have a comment?
I'd just like to make a comment. The Ontario Health Coalition just released this week that from 2014 to 2021, that the deaths of mostly, they did a adolescent age group, and they were due to mental health and addictions. And in that time frame, years 14 to 21, the comparative numbers have tripled. So it is a remarkable problem. Thank you.
All right, any other comments or questions? Seeing none, then I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Okay, sorry.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to council. Because of the deferral of the bylaws for short-term rental, that motion that passed earlier this evening, the first two bylaws listed in the agenda for bylaws will be deferred to a future meeting, pending council's consideration of the short-term rental bylaw at the special meeting. In that case, the one remaining bylaw, which is the provisional reading for the consolidated drain, is the only bylaw you'll be dealing with tonight. It's currently listed as bylaw number 26, but because of the deferral of the two previous bylaws, we'll be adjusting that bylaw number to bylaw number 24 moving forward. So what you'll be voting on this evening for provisional approval is the bylaw 24, which is the consolidated drain provisional approval.
Thank you all. So I have with that, I have a motion that the bylaw number 024-2023, being a bylaw to provide the new assessment schedules for the existing consolidated South Wainfleet drain, be read first and second time and be provisionally adopted this 27th day of June 2023. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor McClellan? Councillor Anderson? Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, I'll call a question. All in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Moving on to notices of motion. Are there any notices of motion from members of council? Okay. So then I now have a motion that council now... Oh, okay. Hold on one second, please.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we're about to move into closed session, potentially, if you support the next motion, to consider a negotiation matter. Just prior to the start of the meeting, we received word that there's a second negotiation matter that likewise needs to be considered from a time perspective. So at this stage, rather than proceeding into closed to deal with one negotiation matter, we'd like to proceed into closed to deal with two. We're going into closed anyway, and rather than putting this off for 3 weeks, we'd like to get this in front of you as information and for potential direction as soon as possible. So with council's support, the motion will call for two closed session discussions regarding two separate negotiation matters.
All right, so with that, I have a motion that council now move into closed session to discuss two items. The first one under section 239(2)K of the Municipal Act 2001, a position plan procedure criteria or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board. One item, matter pertaining to MOU negotiations, and B, minutes from the closed meeting of council held June 6, 2023 and June 14, 2023, and this, and a second negotiation matter. So can I have a mover and a seconder? Councilor Gilmore, Councilor Anderson, any discussion? Seeing none, call a question, all in favor? Opposed? That's carried.